Okay, we're going to be looking at some examples of what's going to be on our math quiz tomorrow. So I just wanted to do a little bit of an example of some of the types of questions that you will see. So for example, the first part of the quiz has questions like this. What would you use to measure a car? And then it'll give you some examples like a ruler, cubes, a meter stick. Some of the other things that it'll ask you about is also a yardstick in some of them. And remember, a yardstick and a meter stick are very similar. A yardstick is part of the customary unit of measurement, and that is 36 inches. A meter stick is part of the metric system, and it is 39 inches. So they're about the same size. So if you won't have a question that has the meter stick and the yardstick both as an answer. So don't worry about that. In this one it says, what would you use to measure a car, a ruler, cubes, or a meter stick? Well, we can automatically say it would not be cubes because cubes are tiny and a car is large. We could use a ruler, but again, a car is a lot bigger and a ruler we would have to use a lot of. So in this case, a meter stick would be the best answer. We would have to use fewer of those to measure, which would make it a better choice of tool to use. The next type of question you're going to have is it will have a drawing of some sort, and then it asks you to measure them in inches. Now, you will be using the two rulers. It'll ask you inches and centimeters. You'll be using the two rulers that are in your math kit. Remember, inches are bigger than centimeters, so when you look at it, it's really easy to figure out which one is which. If you can't remember they told you that this part of your body is about an inch, okay? So if I held that up there and I held it up here, there's a big difference. So that helps me remember this one is almost an inch, so this must be my ruler for inches, okay? So what I'm going to do is on this ruler, remember I put it all the way to the edge there to measure. We also talked about how we're measuring to the nearest inch. And if I am right here, that's not even halfway between the 5 and the 6, so it's closest to the 5. So this is 5 inches. Okay? Then I'm going to measure the same thing with my centimeter ruler. I'm going to put my ruler right at the edge and measure to the nearest centimeter. Now in this one, it is closest, it's almost at halfway, but it's a little bit closer to the 14. So that is going to be 14 centimeters. Okay? The next thing that it will ask us, or the next type of question it will ask us, is to think about the real object. This is very, very important because a lot of times people look at this question and they think, oh, it just says to look at the picture. No, it says right here, look at the real object. Then it says circle the unit that you would use more of to measure the length. So that's a very important part of the sentence right here. I'm going to highlight it. It's so important. It's even underlined because it's so important. Right here. Okay, so that part of the question says think about the real object, so a real tree. Then it says circle the unit you would use more of to measure the length. Well, I know that it takes 12 inches to equal 1 foot, so I would need a lot more inches to measure a tree, the same tree, that I would need feet. Because each time I would use a foot, it would be 12 inches. So if I'm looking at which one it would take more units, it would take more inches to measure that tree than it would feet. All right? The next type of question you're going to see is where it says measure the ribbon to the nearest inch and centimeter. And then it says circle the unit that you would use more of. So you need to be reading these directions very, very, very carefully. A lot of them have more than one step. So it says measure the ribbon to the nearest inch and centimeter. So here's my little inch. It is almost 2 inches, so I'm going to put 2 in my inches. And my centimeters, it is almost 5, so I'm going to put 5. Then it says circle the unit you would use more of. Well, because centimeters are smaller, I had to use more of those, so I'm going to circle that one. I'm going to erase this little spot where I drew on my desk. Okay. Then the next one says, think about the real object. Circle the best answer. So if I had a real car, do I think that would be shorter than a yard or longer than a yard? So longer or shorter than a yard. And I know that a car would be longer than a yard because a yard is 3 feet. And a car is a lot longer than 3 feet. We wouldn't be able to fit in it very well if it was shorter than 3 feet. All right. Then you're going to have a problem just like this, where it has the ruler there for you, and it gives you 2 different ribbons or boxes. And we are going to be asking to measure those 2 and write down how many inches. This is another one where it's multiple steps. So first one we're going to measure, and a lot of people you could even use your ruler to help you draw the line to see where it goes. Oh, that's 1 inch. All right. This one is pretty easy because it's right there, but I could draw my little line. It's 2 inches. Then down here it says, measure the boxes in inches, which I just did, and find out how much longer one is than the other. So if this one ends at 1 inch and this one ends at 2 inches, this one is 1 inch bigger than this one. So it's 1 inch longer, right? Now the last types of questions you're going to see are from the number lines, and we've used number lines before, so this is super easy. But I have a very important statement to make, especially on this quiz that we're going to take tomorrow. So for this number line, the most important thing to remember is I want you to jump the numbers and not the lines, because do you see how up here it's kind of hard? The numbers get squishy and the lines aren't exactly the right way. So I would much rather jump the numbers so that I know I'm on the right number instead of jumping the lines and trying to make sure that the right line is pointing to the right number. Okay? So let me show you what I mean by that. If I'm starting with 32 and I'm subtracting 4, then I put my pencil on 32 and I go backwards 4 because that was how we talked about subtracting. So I circle 32, that's where I'm starting. I go backwards 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. My answer is 28. Okay, I showed my work on my number line. I put my answer up in the answer space. For the adding, I start at 15 and I add 6. Again, I'm going to start on the number, not on the lines. I'm going to circle where I'm starting, and then I'm going to show my 6 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My answer is 21. So this is a pretty easy quiz as long as you're reading all of the parts extremely carefully. If you're rushing and reading quickly, you're going to make mistakes, just like I did. I made a mistake just a minute ago because I didn't read all of the directions before I started solving the problem. We need to make sure we're reading the directions.